Welcome to the first episode of VSML 2009 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is the Canadian who has never been to a B&B that he hasn't compared to a hostel, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who has asked us not to speak about the time he had a chippy for lunch, David Bindley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So are we just doing all the seasons of Vidum now?
It sure feels like it, because
Yeah.
this is about 15 Vidum seasons, probably more than that we've done now.
Yeah, we might not do the junior ones, but
Yeah. So we're missing the first 8 and 12, 13, 15.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, this must be number 15 then that we've done for Vidum.
Yeah, I had it written down that the last one we did was our 14th Vidum season, and we've done 9 Belgia seasons.
Yeah, which is nuts.
We should do one of the really old Belgia seasons for historians one year.
What, just to really troll Fuzzy?
Yeah.
It does actually mean that in terms of release order, this will be our 25th mole season then, I think.
Hooray!
Because obviously we are not to, catchphrase of historians, not to date this too much, we are recording this on the eve of our Vidum 25 reunion episode coming out. So yeah, this won't be coming out until probably July, I reckon. So this does mean that this is our 25th premiere of Vidum in how many years? 6? That's alarming.
Yeah.
Or 7? Didn't we do? We did Mexico as it aired.
Yeah,
that was
but
2018.
Yeah, I was thinking just Vidum. Yeah, we did Mexico as it aired. So yeah, 7-8 years.
We are having a party to celebrate the 25th season, so we've put Logan in charge of cutting up the durian.
We have, yes. And providing all the alcohol.
Do I have to melt the ice with my own body too?
Oh, of course. Can't have a party without snowballs.
So first question, as is traditional with all the mole historians, why this season, Bindles?
Well, basically we wanted to troll Fuzzy, so we thought she's probably expecting us to do Oman, because we sort of kept hinting last year that we liked Oman, we wanted to do it.
Yeah, and also it was our original choice for historians this year, and then we were like, no, that's too easy.
Yeah. So we thought, well, look, if we do this one, we've got Jordan, we can basically stick in some sort of references to how it's in the Middle East and all that sort of stuff, which I don't think we've done yet. But we chose this one before we knew what was going on with Cambodia. And it is really interesting in hindsight because there's a lot in this season that they sort of follow along with Cambodia. Like, we've got the mole not being chosen until they're out there. There's a photography challenge at a world-famous landmark. No spoilers for Logan. There's a few other little bits and pieces going on that sort of interesting parallels, which I'm kind of looking forward to this season.
So photography challenge at Petra, in other words.
Yes. Well, unless you can think of a world-famous landmark in Northern Ireland.
Titanic.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is the only season we've not done where the mole is picked on location, I think.
That sounds about right.
I think there's only been 3 worldwide.
Yeah.
And I think somehow we've accidentally stumbled into doing the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Even though we decided this before Cambodia, as you said.
Unless one of the really obscure Polish seasons or something did it, which I don't know yet, I think this is it.
Yeah. I will preface this entire premiere by saying I do not like the mole being picked on location.
No.
It works out all right this season, but it's one of those things that we do say to Jill at the end of the season, like, right, you got away with it, don't do it again.
Yeah. I will say, this is a season, when I wrote it up for the challenge guide, the subtitles hadn't come out yet. So this is my first time watching with subtitles, and my opinions on a lot of this cast have changed.
What year did you do the challenge guide for this season, then?
The last one was 2019, and then when I updated it for this year, I basically just edited the text that I already had.
I feel like That Dark Spark did sub to this season. I've definitely seen this season with subtitles before.
Huh. I think there was 1 or 2 episodes that had it, but I don't think I've watched the whole season with subs before.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of the few TDS seasons before Marika took over.
Okay.
Obviously, we're doing this with Marika's subtitles as always. But yeah, I feel like I've seen this season subtitled before, but I might not have.
Yeah.
Thank you, as always, to Marika for the subtitles.
Yeah, preemptively. The first question for you, Saunders, is we warned you we were going to ask you this question. Rank these candidates by age.
Oh, ranked by age. So it's a lot younger cast than usual, right?
I'll let you decide that because I'll tell you what the average age is at the end of this little segment.
Let's see. So I think the oldest is John.
Okay, you can think that.
Okay. Second oldest is Vera. Third oldest is Hans. Fourth oldest is Rick. Then let's see. Then Vivian. Then Paula. Then Anik. Then Sebastian. Then Fraukia. Then Dennis.
1 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you got 1 out of 10, which is Dennis, who literally said that he was 22 on this episode.
Yeah.
So Dennis is 22, Vivian's 24, which is also said in this episode. So you got
Yeah.
2 easy ones that you completely fucked up there. Anik's 30, Frauki's 31, Sebastian's 37, Paula's 41, Vera's 45, John and Hans are both 47, and Rick is the oldest at 48, which means the average age of this season is 37.2.
Was that surpassing the AF line?
Now, she was 39, but it's very, very close to the Alf Brancotius line.
It is a very old cast, though. It's just Dennis and Vivian really bringing the average down.
I like how those were the only 2 ages that were specified for some reason, that they were 20. So remember they said, "Oh, I'm 22, I'm 24," and then the other their ages are not said aloud.
Yeah, they're the only 2 that are under the age of 30.
So it's not a young cast. Okay.
No.
That's interesting.
So when you said it was a young cast, that was completely false. It's a very old cast.
I guess there's no one that's like really old in this cast to really bring up the age.
No, I mean, like, half of them are in the 40s. And I'll also say, at least from my perspective, I'm not going to spoil who the old moles are. I will mention that they were in the previous 4 celebrity seasons, but I don't think we're going to spoil seasons that we haven't covered.
Okay.
Is the general rule. I don't really think there's much to talk about with the old moles anyway, to be honest, so I think we can get away with that.
They were not really involved with this at all.
Yeah, it's very much a quick cameo just to be like, hey, we managed to get these people over to Northern Ireland. That's fun. Let's go and keep going with the season.
Yeah.
So was it Australia Bali when they used the civilian moles, right? When they had that two truths and a lie challenge or whatever the hell that was?
Yes, but they did that challenge in the Netherlands before they left.
Right.
And then I think we get the old moles this season, and then Carol and Angela next season, and then there's basically no more like on-site cameos until Renaissance, I think.
Yeah.
And then it happens every year.
And I lost the tease for you, Saunders. The mole for this season did appear in Renaissance.
Mm.
They were one of the, I think it was the second batch of moles on the Path of Temptation, Don't Turn Around While Your Own Fucks Everything Up challenge. I think they were in that last group of 3 in the finale. But they definitely appeared in Renaissance anyway. It's been so long since I've seen Renaissance, I can't remember who's in which group, but I think this mole was in the second group. So, we begin, as is traditional with Pieter Jan, introducing us to the Northern Irish coastline, whilst flying from a helicopter, obviously.
Is the town named seriously Ballycarry?
Yeah, Ballycarry. According to Wikipedia, in its last census, it had a population of 981 people.
I know we've just spent like all season praising Rick for actually doing something for once, but can you imagine him flying over Northern Ireland in a helicopter?
Absolutely not. It's the most Pieter Jan introduction possible. There is zero reason for Pieter Jan to be flying in a helicopter.
Yeah.
But Pieter Jan probably asked to be flying in a helicopter, and what Pieter Jan wants, Pieter Jan gets.
I love that Pieter Jan's 4 seasons, we get him in a helicopter, him driving up in a shitty little wagon twice, and then just randomly standing at a Japanese temple like a hockey goon.
Yeah. And bear in mind, at this point, Sam would have been 16 years old, so at the prime age where he just wants to get the fuck out of that house and go to Northern Ireland.
I wonder if Pieter Jan has given Jules any parenting tips yet.
God, I hope so. Never respect them. Never have anything to do with them if you can. Go as far away as is physically possible. The Pieter Jan rules. I didn't actually realise, just upon that quick Google to check how old Sam would have been at the time of filming, that Sam's only like a year older than me.
Yeah, you are old.
He's between me and Saunders, basically.
Huh.
He's about 7 months younger than Saunders.
Well, there's a visual I didn't need.
So below Pieter Jan in the unnecessary helicopter, 10 candidates are being taken in taxis to their first location, the village of Ballycarry. 10 candidates, because there is no mole yet chosen.
What a twist!
This is completely unprecedented. We've never seen this before.
At the time.
So our first candidate is 22-year-old TV presenter Dennis Storm. He says that a good mole is able to be nonchalant. And he's met by Pieter Jan and asked a simple question after handing over his passport, phone and credit card. Do you want to be the mole? If he says no, that will earn €500 for the pot.
Just before we go on, I love how this season they basically didn't have a budget for the credits, so they're just using like shots from this episode and the next couple of episodes for their little player introductions. So you've got Dennis with his torch in the warehouse, and then Vivian basically sitting in this waiting room, just like looking like she's wanting someone to paint them like one of her French girls.
Yeah, Vivian's intro shot makes her look like Maleficent.
Yeah.
I have to say on this point, the downside of us doing such an early season for historians now is it is a ball ache to get cast photos. There are no cast photos on the internet for this season. I've had to basically just find screenshots of these people and mock up my own cast photos.
Yeah, the only one we've got is the group photo in this episode, and that's it. Like, they didn't bother taking a photo with the 10 of them and Pieter Jan.
It looks like from the Wayback Machine, there used to be cast photos on the website, but it is far too old for me to be able to actually get them anymore. So we're making do and mending for the cast photos this year.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone sees the Logan Suspicions images and goes, where the fuck did those photos come from? The answer is, they are screenshots from the episodes that I've had to kind of mock up as cast photos. You're welcome. This is the things I do for you people.
I wonder if part of picking the criteria for picking the mole, if it's Dennis, is that the mole is required to ride a bull while Song 2 by Blur is playing.
I said this to Bindles earlier. Some of these videos are weird this season.
Yeah.
Like, you have Dennis riding a bull, and that, in any other season, would probably be the weirdest one. But then you have Sebastian later, who's getting limes hooked onto his back.
Hooked into his back. Not onto his back, into his back.
I'd kind of vaguely remembered that he had a weird intro shot. And when I rewatched it this afternoon, I just went, what the fuck? What is this show that he hosts?
My favourite bit is like the TV presenters all have really weird stuff, and then the theatre people, it's basically all them getting awards or them just like acting. There's like no entertainment value in their parts.
I like how Vivian looks like she's in a really crappy, like scripted spy show that would air at like 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon. That show looked terrible.
I genuinely wrote, she looks like the Paulie Perrette from a Dutch NCIS knockoff.
Again, not the weirdest of the acting ones, because one of them seemingly is a nurse in an old folks' home.
I went down a rabbit hole trying to work out that one, and I think it was basically like a sketch comedy show or something. And apparently, I think it was Anik. She was like this one of the supporting characters in the sketch comedy thing from like these 3 old Dutch comedians, and apparently that was the last TV show they ever did before they broke up. But who knows?
I'll be honest, there are 2 of the women in this first episode that I kept getting mixed up in my notes.
Yeah.
And we have another Cambodia reference because Frauke's intro shows Angkor Wat.
It does?
Is that a clue?
It's foreshadowing.
16 years in advance.
So second is Vivienne, who is a 24-year-old actress, and she says a mole has to be alert and aware of others, but also themselves to make sure they're not too suspicious, but also staying calm. She wants to be the mole, so that costs the group €500, and she's sent to a side room. Third is soap actor Rick. A mole should always pay attention and not be too predictable, or just be a kind and friendly person. And when Vivian enters the room that she's sent to, she's met by 4 familiar faces, the previous celebrity moles. It will be them who will interview the candidates who say yes, and them who select the mole in the end.
If they get 3 yeses, they go to Hollywood.
Yeah, presumably they will select the mole, but also so will production.
Yeah. I love that Pieter Jan is such a dick to them when he asks them, and he doesn't give any follow up information at all.
Pieter Jan, I think, as much as obviously a few days ago we did praise Rick very highly for his season, Pieter Jan is so much better with this than he is in terms of the sheer dickery that is required to go, well, do you want to be the mole?
Yeah. Okay, that's cost you €500. Now get the fuck out.
Yeah. The irony, of course, is that Pieter Jan's son was the only one to say no to that question, allegedly. And Vivian tells Dennis she said no when they all reunite. Anik is next. She's a comedian, and she says a mole should be able to be invisible, but also not be scared to be front and center. They have to be social, interested, and able to gain trust. And that is one of the 3 characteristics that a mole should actually be, according to Cambodia.
It's such a weird little visual to have that waiting room. Like, all the scenes from the waiting room are basically shown like they're being filmed on a security camera.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense because, like, you would assume, well, there is at least one camera in there recording them.
I do wonder whether that footage played into who the mole ended up being as well. Because it's not just how you deal with the old moles, it's how you are around the other candidates and whether you admit that you wanted to be the mole or what, or not, I think.
Yeah, if they see the person who wants to be the mole just sweating profusely, then they're thinking, probably best not to pay. Or whoever comes up with the dumbest lie for what they told Pieter Jan. Yeah. Oh, I said I don't know. And nothing about money was mentioned.
I do think it's interesting that Dennis is the only person that we see who did say no. Someone else did, and I presume we find out. I can't actually remember when we find out, but I presume we'll find out by the end of the season who the other person was who said no.
I'd have to check, but I think we see most of the other people talking to the old moles, so maybe we can probably work it out through like that
process of elimination.
It is odd that basically all of the waiting room scenes are Dennis interrogating people one by one.
Yeah.
Like, nobody else gets a word in edgeways. It's just Dennis, like, accusing people and trying to work out what the fuck is going on.
I do think that Dennis is maybe a little funnier when they get to the B&B, though.
Yeah.
Sebastian's a TV presenter who's also a fantastic liar, and we see him be pierced in the back by hooks attached to limes, which is a sentence that I didn't think I was going to have to say in this podcast.
Again,
yeah.
And he hosts a show called Holy Shit. That's the actual name of the show.
And he says he wants to be the mole. Vera's next. She's an award-winning actress. She's the oldest of the 5 women in the show, and could be the mole because of her people skills, and she also wants to be the mole. John's the next person introduced. He says a good mole can pretend all they want, but should be authentic to their own character, and wants to be the mole. Paula's next. She could be a good mole because she's very social and makes people feel safe, and when they feel safe, they don't suspect anything. Hans is next up, and he's a radio DJ and much younger than you'd think, Saunders. And last to arrive is Frauke, who says that everyone could be a good mole because everyone's already lied, which is allowed here, and she wants to be the mole.
I think Paula is my instant favourite just from how she responded to Pieter Jan.
Yeah.
What? There's been no mole? Eek.
Ta-da!
I was doing the cast photos earlier. I think I may have made the ta-da shot her cast photo. I definitely intended on it if I didn't. And the old moles discuss who should be the next person to join their club, and one of them gets selected. Each of them will go to the laptop in full view of the others and the old moles to see their screen. If it's red, they're a candidate, and if it's green, they are the mole. Dennis knew that he said no, so types in someone else's name to either rule them in or out, but we don't find out who that is. And Pieter Jan also tells them that 8 people said they wanted to be the mole, meaning that they begin the season with a pot of minus €3,000.
It would have been awkward if, like, the old moles had basically decided, no, none of these people are good enough to be the mole. We're going to pick Dennis anyway, and then he doesn't know because he typed somebody else's name in.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe it's a great tactic, obviously, to go, I'm going to type someone else's name in and, get a twofer. But what if the actual mole did that? Would they have to be taken aside by production and go, you're the mole, right?
Just Pieter Jan shows up at their hotel room. Are you ready for your briefing? What? I like during the interrogation scene of Frauke. I think it might have been one of them, one of the old moles. who said, Fraukia, you're doubting a lot. And then Fraukia says, oh, that's because I'm a Libra. That's why I'm doubting a lot.
Such Libra energy.
I did like the Thailand mole basically asking Fraukia if she'd rather win or be the mole, and then she pauses for so long. Is basically all, sorry, you had your chance, go away.
Not a chance, you're out.
Yeah. Cut.
And they then board a big yellow bus as a group to go to Belfast. Dennis says you don't know where you're going, and then you get the disappointment of A, going to Northern Ireland, and B, staying in twin rooms in a B&B without a shower.
When they all typed in their names for the laptop, I'm surprised. I wonder if production tested it out to make sure there wasn't too much red or green glare when people type in their own names, given how close they were.
Yeah, and Hans's glasses probably would have reflected it.
Yeah.
I presume they probably turned down the brightness down really, really low so it wouldn't reflect anything.
Yeah, or actually, in reality, had the words mole or not mole. This whole scene of going to Belfast was not a good advertisement for the B&B. I mean, they got close up on the sign, but it was basically, yes, this is a shithole, but you're only here for one night.
Paid for by the government of Ireland. What's the whole idea of one room having a shower, though? Let's not even incorporate as a twist in the episode.
Well, you've stayed in far worse accommodation than that.
Yeah, but it just seems weird that's just like, oh, one of the 5 rooms has a shower, the other 4 don't, and it's not going to be relevant at all to the season or any of the challenges.
I think even in 2008, it would have been very difficult to find 5 rooms that didn't have access to a shower.
I will say this B&B does look a lot nicer than some of the capsule hotels I've stayed in.
Yeah, I mean, not to harp on old points, I wouldn't fit in a capsule hotel. I am far too tall for a capsule hotel. So only Vivienne and Paula's room has a shower, everyone else has absolutely nothing. Presumably they have a communal shower of some description, but you know, who wants to share these things? And they wake on day 2 to be driven to the Titanic dock, where Pieter Jan awaits. Here they will get a chance to put the pot back to 0 by recreating the family photo from the day before. They've got 45 minutes once the doors close to recreate it to earn €3,000.
In my initial notes, I wrote, I wonder how long it's going to take before they go to the Titanic shipyard, because that's the one thing associated with Northern Ireland.
Spoilers, this isn't the only time they're going there.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Like, they do 2 challenges this episode, and I think one the next episode at this warehouse.
Yeah, I will defend them slightly in the fact that I'm not sure Northern Ireland is the easiest place to film. There will still have been an undercurrent of sectarian tension in 2008.
Like, I don't think it's coincidental that Amazing Race has only been there once, and they did it basically the leg before the finale where there were fewer people running around.
Yeah. I suspect there will have been not a security presence as there are on some seasons, but I think there would have been some security concerns.
Yeah.
While they're in Northern Ireland, at least.
Yeah.
So inside, they find 10 televisions set up to the composition of the family photo from the day before, and they've got to find the 10 locations in the warehouse of the cameras linked to the TVs and stand in the correct place. Sebastian gets the easy spots, which is right by the TVs themselves, so he coordinates the group. Each camera also has a walkie-talkie attached, so he uses them to guide people to their cameras.
The music for this scene, like being so overblown for what is basically just a warehouse door opening and closing, is utterly hilarious.
Yeah. It's like it's some sort of space mission.
Yeah.
It's basically Titanic, the final frontier. Annick finds Vera's spot all the way at the top of the warehouse. Vivienne and Frauke walk right past one of the cameras. John finds Paula's spot before he also finds Dennis's spot. Sebastian then tries to sabotage by swapping Dennis and Rick, but gets called out straight away. And he finds out that his camera is on a helmet, so someone else has to wear it and he has to stand in front of it.
I love how chaotic these challenges are in the old days before they spend the entire time yelling about ether discipline.
Yeah, it was noticeable when the family photo came up to not hear, trust nobody.
Yeah.
But also it's very refreshing at the start of this challenge where essentially we don't get any instructions.
No.
It's very much show, not tell. And it's noticeable in that challenge where it's like, yeah, you got 45 minutes, you need to recreate the family photo, have fun. And then as the warehouse opens and everything, They find out what the challenge is, and we do it at the same time. Not everything's spelled out to them, which is nice.
Yeah. And really, we don't get much more than that one like CGI shot of the warehouse showing where all the cameras are.
That Crystal Maze style shot.
Yeah.
Like it's the medieval zone.
And like, it certainly helped sort of visualize it a little bit more. But I think this warehouse is probably a little bit too samey looking to sort of tell where people are at any given time.
Oh, absolutely. And also, they would have only been allowed in certain areas anyway, because
Yeah.
it was a bit dangerous in places. There's a good reason they've all got to wear helmets. So Frankie's told to keep shouting and whistling to John so he could find her, but she stops and he gets a bit lost. Frankie's camera also ends up being on a helmet, but this time it's just been dumped in their bus. And Hans can't find his spot even though it's close to John. And he finally finds it with a minute left on the clock, and Pieter Jan then appears. And they are completely correct for a total of €3,000 of 3,000 for the challenge.
How would you have handled this challenge if you were the mole?
I think it's tough because as a mole, you want to make a mark straight away, but also I think you probably want to allow them to get to 0.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't really sabotage this challenge potentially, just to give them a little bit of confidence and let them screw themselves over in the negotiation challenge rather than ending up at minus 5,000 for this episode.
It was bizarre that basically, like, sort of the first half of the challenge, everyone who sort of, whenever they find a camera, they get the right person there pretty quickly, and then that person doesn't go anywhere. But then all of a sudden, everybody just buggers off.
I think it's probably quite hard for them all as well because the family photo is so recent that everyone remembers where they were anyway.
Yeah, it's not like Dominican Republic where you do you take the family photo episode 1 and then you don't actually do the challenge with it until episode 7, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to sabotage this challenge. I think it's probably designed for them to have an early victory. And my suspicion is that whatever they had taken out of the pot in that first challenge was probably going to be available to win in this challenge. So if it was all 10 of them picking it, I think it probably would have been a €5,000 win this one to get them back to 0. Because yes, occasionally letting them have an entire episode where they're in the negative is fun, but you don't want it too often. And you don't really want to have the start of the season be so in the red that it takes 2 days to get out of it like they did in Georgia. Or 2 episodes to get out of it like they did in Georgia.
It was interesting that one of the cameras was basically pointed at a whole bunch of information about tickets and all that sort of stuff. And it took them so long to realize that A, that meant there's probably a boat or a bus floating around somewhere, and B, that they managed to hide a bus in this warehouse without anyone noticing for what looked like 35-40 minutes at least.
Yeah, and it's not a subtle bus either. It's the one they got on. It's bright yellow.
Yeah.
And on a safety point, I presume that's why they have a bus to get around. I presume it was very much a you're not driving yourselves.
Yeah.
Or they just thought driving around in a double-decker bus was just awesome.
Well, Vidum never really normally does drive themselves. Like, Vidum usually has drivers. Belty drives themselves.
Yeah, but usually it's in some sort of taxi or people carrier of some description. Usually they don't get a big double-decker bus.
In Argentina, they had buses quite often.
Shut up, Saunders.
They might have just decided because, they were in the UK, they could get a double-decker bus cheap for a few days. Because, it turns up in a challenge next episode as well. I know that's not the same bus, but it might, be the same company or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the one in the next episode is a sightseeing bus.
Yeah.
Which is an actual company. I suspect they probably didn't provide the yellow one. The yellow one looks like a co-opted school bus to me. It looks like the sort of bus that I got to school for 5 years.
I like how whenever John smiles or laughs, he always looks like Mr. Bean.
Yeah, he does. The other thing that I do want to point out is the banner choice was actually made by Bindles this time. It's when Hans is running to his camera, he runs past the actual camera, but he runs like he's a child going, "Look, Dad, I can run! Whee!" And I must have watched this 4 or 5 times this afternoon to get the banner shot just right, and it made me laugh every time. Someone needs to just overlay it with with someone going, "Whee!" just, yeah, it really tickled me.
I love that Hans somehow manages to feel like the oldest person they've ever cast for this show, and yet he's younger than Michael was this year.
Yeah, he's nowhere near the oldest person they've ever cast on this show, but he just feels like it.
He feels like he's so old that this season should have a whole bunch of challenges where he gets to sit down.
Yeah.
Sit down on the Titanic.
He's so old, he looks like he could have been on the Titanic.
Damn it. That's what I just thought of. Oh, man.
Now, one of you has to sit on the deck chairs and the rest of you have to shuffle them around.
Well, one of you joins the string quartet. So Pieter Jan asks them after a chippy lunch whether they want to win an exemption for the first test, and as Paula raised her hand first, she begins the chain of exemption eligibility and picks Vera, who picks Frauke, Rick, John, Dennis, and Annick then all get picked, leaving Sebastian and Hans left out.
Pieter Jan should have said, okay, who wants an exemption? Oh, Paula? Okay, 500 euros is deducted from the pot.
I love that in like Cambodia and like all the modern seasons, they go to like proper restaurants for like all their afternoon debrief / arguments. This one looks like it's basically just an empty parking space on the side of a highway.
Yeah, they'll have been somewhere on the outskirts of Belfast at a proper chippy.
Yeah, and I'm like, they really did make Northern Ireland a character in this season. And it's wonderful.
So each of them gets an eighth of a Topito, and whoever has all 8 will get the exemption. They've got 3 minutes to negotiate in pairs who gets the Topito, and if they cheat or draw for it, or can't decide, it will cost 1,000 euros from the pot. The first pairs are Dennis and John, Vera and Paula, Vivian and Annick, and Rick and Frauke. Annick gives up very quickly, as does Frauke. John and Dennis just come to a stalemate. John offers to tell Dennis after every test who he voted for, and Dennis offers to tell John who isn't the mole, but neither of them can agree, and it ends up with Rick basically getting a freebie pass to the final and costing them 1,000 euros. Vivian then gives up her 2, and Paula and Rick are left as the final 2. And their negotiation ends with Pieter Jan audibly counting down from 5, and no agreement, but minus 2,000 euros of 8,000 for the episode and season so far.
How do you feel about this challenge?
It's an interesting way to do a first exemption.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not the most interesting challenge for us to talk about, like, as you can tell from how you just, burnt through everything. But I think it's an interesting way to do it, and it's an interesting way to be like, okay, the torpedoes weren't like a one-off twist. We might use them again in the future, and they do turn up in Japan as well with that non-elimination that they sort of had to fudge when whoever it was went home sick. But I like that the torpedoes are sort of, okay, we're going to do that this first episode, then they're out of the way, and now let's just get on with the rest of the season. I think that's an interesting way to use the idea they just had in a new way it gives the rest of the season a chance to stand on its own 2 feet rather than what they've sort of done with, the black exemption turning up every year.
I know that it's basically 2 pot drain challenges in an episode, and I should hate them, but I kind of don't, because they feed into each other, and this one especially is an entirely avoidable pot drain challenge, which means I can't complain about it too much. It's their own damn fault that they lose $2,000 here.
Yeah. Like, this one is a good pot drain because it's an avoidable and all that sort of stuff. The other one is a good pot drain because it's the first challenge of the season. You've got plenty of time to make it up.
Yeah, neither of these happened 2 episodes before the end of the season.
Yeah, it didn't happen in episode 7.
And I also think the negotiation one kind of feeds off the mistrust that the first one built up. So I don't hate it as much as I could.
I do want to see Hans have to get across a marker without touching the ground, though.
Yes. And without knackering himself. Because he old.
How would you try and obtain the exemption in this scenario with it's like a torpedo negotiating tournament?
That's exactly what it is, Logan.
Yeah, you've got to offer information, I think.
Yeah.
It's a way to, yes, build on the mistrust that the first couple of challenges built up, but also it's a way to build alliances. If you agree, as I would say John actually probably had the right tactic here, of just going, I'll give you some information each round if you let me go on to the next round. Like, that's good.
Yeah. And you don't have to tell the truth.
Yeah, exactly. you don't have to tell the truth, but you can build alliances using this challenge.
Sam Huggins would have loved this challenge.
To be fair, he would have loved spending any time with his father at the age of 16, given that, his father was deliberately avoiding him at the age of 16.
Yeah. He went all the way to Japan to get away from him.
Yeah.
And to a literal war zone like El Salvador.
I'm glad that the negotiations didn't escalate too much there with what people were willing to offer. I'm glad that no sexual favors were involved in this challenge. That would have made things really awkward.
Meanwhile, Sebastian and Hans are doing a negotiation of their own, and Hans is just going, I will give you a discount code for my OnlyHans if you let me have the torpedo.
If you give me your torpedo, I'll blow you.
Can I just say, autocorrect is going to drive me nuts by the end of this season because it keeps not putting in the extra A in Sebastian.
Yeah, weirdly, my autocorrect did not correct Sebastian, which I was very impressed about. I was fully expecting it to. It's not even got a red line. So it must just consider Sebastian with a double A a real name.
Huh.
So, it's now time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home, except for the mole who can never go home. And one final question before we do the test scene. Saunders, we did ask you, who do you think is the Sneaky Belgian in this season?
Oh, right, the Sneaky Belgian.
Yeah. Who Belgian, Saunders?
Let's go through these names. Who's got a Flemishy last name? Dennis Storm. I can't believe that's his actual name.
Does sound like a cartoon character.
Yeah, Dennis Storm.
He sounds like the weatherman in a porn parody.
I'll defer to your expertise there. It's getting very wet.
Or a Marvel character in an X-Men porn parody.
Well, yeah, because Johnny Storm is Chris Evans, isn't he?
Let's see. Hans? Vivian?
Interesting.
Interesting choice. I mean, we're not going to tell you, but...
Oh, okay. Be that way.
We will.
Yeah.
So Dennis isn't sure, but he's spreading on Paula, Hans, and Rick. Paula does little things that are suspicious. Paula is shown clicking that the mole didn't give up a torpedo. Vivian is shown clicking that the mole didn't have a helmet camera. Vera says that Dennis could be the mole. He and John made sure they lost money in the negotiation, which also makes John suspicious. Hans is high on Sebastian's list because of the first challenge. He was on every camera except his own, and he didn't listen to anything that John was saying. Hans ticks that Frauke is the mole. Frauke says the mole walked to the laptop last. John is going for Hans as he was weird in the Titanic call. Annick says that the mole was in the finale of the negotiation game. And Rick says that Paula and Annick are on his list, but John is number one. He found all the cameras, but how? And he also cost them money with the negotiation.
Interesting, all of it.
Yeah. Insert picture of Bingo Bear holding an interesting sign. Pieter Jan tells them that they're at the dock of the Titanic, a beautiful place to say goodbye to one of them. Such a sarcastic bastard.
The execution is on the Titanic dry dock, but somebody's about to hit an iceberg.
Yeah.
One of you will no longer be king of the world.
It just reminds me of that Jeopardy clip of the contestant interviews and Alex Trebek making a joke and the contestant just going, Alex, you're being insensitive. Pieter Jan, you're being insensitive.
Now, 9 of you will get a meal at Chartreuse and 1 of you will just lose.
Yeah. And they start the season €2,000 in the red, and nobody has an exemption due to their selfishness. Annick volunteers to have the first screen, which is green. Rick then volunteers for the second one, and it's green as well, but it's Vera who's typed in third and gets the red. And she gets a wonderful montage.
Let's see. So her montage, I wrote it all down. So it's her being in a car on the way to carry balls, smiling in front of the mole panel, telling Pieter Jan she wants to be the mole. She makes a face in front of the camera during the group photo recreation challenge. She walks over to Paula after being picked in the schoolyard pick. We see her negotiating with Paula, and hilariously enough, her getting the red screen is part of the montage too, after just getting the red screen.
I'm not going to lie, the first thing that I thought when we had the montage was, Saunders is going to love this.
I can't believe they included her getting the red screen after getting the red screen. Like, isn't this part of the montage in a way?
I don't think they had a lot to work with her. Because she was basically the first person to find the right camera in the warehouse, and then she just didn't move for the rest of the challenge. And she's like, "Oh, I don't care what's going on. I'm in the right place. That's good enough." And then she, very quickly nopes out of the negotiations. So pretty much all they've really got of her is the mole selection. And, well, clearly she's not the mole, but she didn't do much in there either. So, I mean, she seems nice, but I don't think this was the right show for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was surprised she went home first.
Pieter Jan was not. He's like, apparently you were very wrong.
Yeah, Pieter Jan could not hide his contempt for her. Like, you were just so wrong.
Yeah, you were better off on Expedition Robinson than you were with how you took this quiz.
I mean, there's 2 words that I can just hear on the wind for Vera. She gone.
What's as Celine Dion plays as she exits?
They absolutely should have done that. That would have been hilarious. If they could afford her, obviously.
When I feel you.
My heart will, she gone.
Okay, we've got a title. God.
It's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, it really is.
We might not have a lot to discuss with some of these challenges, but we're going to have fun with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe that they managed to squeeze in 2 challenges, the quiz and the execution, all either inside the shipyard warehouse or within 100 meters of it. That's pretty impressive, even by Vidum standards, to just be like, yeah, we're just going to stay in the same parking lot for this whole episode, or for 2-3 quarters of the episode.
You know what's really refreshing? The fact that they did 3 challenges in 50 minutes.
Yeah, like the torpedo challenge, there was no interlude at all. It was just, they did the challenge at the warehouse, and then it was straight into the torpedoes, which is probably how it was in filming, given that the torpedo challenge was outside the warehouse and probably was immediately afterwards. It was like watching the Mole New Zealand with the lack of transition of just immediately doing the following challenge, minus the brain teasers.
And they do the same kind of thing in Holland Village next season, where they basically do the laser tag challenge, and then they do the Joker thing, and then they do the elimination there as well. But this feels even faster than that.
Yeah, it was very efficient. Also, something of note, given we love to talk about it, who do you think the one person on this season to have done the Slimster Men's of the Slimster Men's this year was?
Not Vera.
There's one person who came second in their original season of the Slimster Men's and came back for the All-Star season this year.
Let's go with Sebastian?
You want to guess his Bindles?
I'm going to go Rick.
Oof. You're both wrong. It was Anik.
Huh.
She did not make the finals. Anything else you want to say about this episode, or indeed Vera, other than, she gone?
She was gleeful.
She was certainly a person on this season of television.
Yes, she was. So next time, there is a washing line on a sightseeing bus, more abandoned buildings get destroyed, they visit the Wheel of Belfast, and explore a pitch black house.
Wheel of Belfast!
I don't even know if it's called the Wheel of Belfast. I'm assuming it's not still there.
There better be an audience cheering it on.
This was very much the era of, you know what, the London Eye's popular, let's just have a random Ferris wheel in every city around the world.
Oh, my favourite one is there's one in Brisbane. It's basically sponsored by Channel 7, so they've got like the big Channel 7 logo in the middle of the wheel. But because it's on the bank of the river, it's across the road from the ABC. So basically everyone at the ABC is sort of working, and then they look at the thing, and then they see the Channel 7 logo.
I'm sure we'll talk about this next week, but I'm not a fan of Ferris wheels. And in fact, I went on the ride at Disneyland in 2013 that has since been nicknamed Mickey's Death Wheel for how interesting the health and safety was on that ride.
I'm surprised that wasn't a challenge in Vidum or Belgia.
Oh, they can't afford to go to California.
The Belfast wheel was a 60 metres, 200 feet tall, transportable Ferris wheel installation in the centre of Belfast, Northern Ireland, in the grounds on the east side of Belfast City Hall. It operated from November 2007 to April 2010, so it was only there for 2.5 years.
Sounds like Northern Ireland.
Yep.
I've never been to Northern Ireland. I've not been to Jordan either. This is like the one season where they have two countries and I haven't been to either of them, so I can't keep sharing stories and make it about me.
Well, by the time that this comes out, you'll have gone to Europe again, Saunders. Book your ideas up.
Well, I guess I'll have to go to Northern Ireland just to do it.
Have you gone to Nicaragua and done a people smuggling ring yet?
I was thinking it was more of a 2026 thing.
Okay.
Wait for dry season of next year.
Final two questions. Who does Logan suspect and who does he think's going home next week?
And who fucking Saunders?
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought there were 3 questions.
Yeah, we can do who's fucking if you want, but nobody in this season, as far as we're aware, did fuck, so...
John and Mr. Bean. John and Vera. But in all seriousness, Dennis and Vivian. I'll make that my guess.
Interesting.
And my suspect list, Anik, number 1, because I think Bindles may or may not have spoiled that during the last Vidum episode that we recorded. Number 2, Vivian. Number 3, Fraukia. Number 4, Rick. Number 5, Sebastian. Number 6, Dennis. Number 7, Paula. Number 8, Vera. Number 9, Hans. And number 10, Mr. Bean. I just can't see Mr. Bean being revealed to be the mole at the end of this season.
Interesting. And who do you think is going home next week?
And I want Mr. Bean to stick around for another week. Who was the guy that did the weird, overreaction to his screen, to his name being typed in? Hans?
Hans did, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with Hans, because that was dumb.
Interesting again?
I just think he thinks he's smarter than he actually is. Everyone's onto his shtick.
I mean, he is Dutch, and that is what they do.
Oh, so he's not the Belgian. Ha! I've ruled one out.
Maybe by the end of the season, Saunders will find out who's Belgian in this season.
I'm just spoiling everything this week.
Yeah, spoilers, he will not. So, thank you for listening to our Feast of Mole 2009 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for an old mole in Northern Ireland and Jordan. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform that's not TikTok.
Including Blue Sky.
Including Blue Sky, yep. We've been on it far longer than Logan has. Where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us at contact@rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors and get early access to the rest of the episodes of this season. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles, and we'll see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Watch out, storms are coming.